Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan Danziger. This is another edition of the WLS Minute. I'm a principal with West Lane and Schlager Realty Advisors. I'm here with my partner, Eric West. And today our topic is leadership during a time of change and turbulence. Our guest is Robin Wiener. She's the president of CEO of the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. They are a $17 million organization. They have about 1,100 members worldwide and a 50-person staff located here in DC. So Robin, thank you for joining us. And if you would just tell us a little bit about you and ISRI.
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this today. ISRI is a trade association based here in Washington, representing the for-profit recycling industry. So all those companies that process, broker, consume scrap metal, paper, plastics, glass, textiles, rubber, and electronics, as well as equipment and service providers to the industry. Our industry is very much part of the manufacturing supply chain here in the US as well as globally.
Okay, great, thank you. So ever since we've known you, which has been several years now, we've loved working with you, you respond to our emails from all over the world. I can think of countless times you've been in China and the UAE and other cool cities. And now we're all working from home. How's it working for you?
It's actually surprisingly well, although I certainly miss to a certain extent the travel and just seeing friends and business associates around the world who we've developed relationships with working relationships. I have to say that part of this is a gift in that I've been able to spend more time with my family and be with my kids who are 11 and 16 during the day and the evenings when they go to bed every night. And it's really it's something special. And so I am valuing this time at home with them.
Do your kids feel the same way, that it's super special?
Not always, no. Some days yes, some days no. It varies.
I think that's pretty normal.
So, as you know, West Lane and Schlager represents a lot of trade associations. And over the last 2 months, we've been talking to most all of the CEOs and COOs and CFOs. Some of the organizations are doing fine. The consumer brands and consumer goods are doing fine. Generally, some in the construction industry are doing okay. Others have been severely impacted. And we're hearing stress from two sides, so membership and meetings. So with regard to your members, how have they been impacted? And more importantly, how do you see 2021 playing out for members?
It's a complicated story in that from our members' perspective, our members have been hit very hard by what's happened with COVID-19. They are challenged both on the supply side in terms of the raw materials they purchase, as well as the demand side, selling into, again, they're part of the supply chain for manufacturing, which have been significantly affected domestically and globally. So their businesses are down anywhere between 20 to 60 or 70%, depending upon the region, depending upon the commodity they focus on, et cetera. In terms of ISRI, we've also been certainly challenged. The good news is that our membership due cycle is such that the vast majority of our members were already in by the time this hit in mid-March. So for 2020, our membership is looking strong. On the other hand, our annual meeting was scheduled for last month, so the last week of April in Las Vegas, and we depend very much on that meeting, that annual convention, for helping us to balance the budget and pay for all of our advocacy efforts and all our other services throughout the year. And we had to cancel that meeting because we simply couldn't. Las Vegas was closed. And that is the largest gathering for the recycling industry globally each year, the largest trade show. So it really was a lost opportunity for the whole industry, not for just ISRI. So that was a several $million hit for us. The good news is at least I hope it's good news, we have insurance coverage and we were lucky enough to sign the communicable disease endorsement. So we're in conversations with the insurance carrier and it appears that we'll get most of the money that we lost, but again, that is not completely settled yet, so I can't say definitively. My worry is more with next year, in that what we're all going through right now is not going to resolve itself by fall. And the truth is, no one knows how it's going to resolve itself or exactly when it will, but the odds are pretty good this is going to go through at least next year in some form or another. And it's going to take companies a long time to recover, for manufacturing to come up to the levels it once was. There are going to be effects on workforce, et cetera. And so I would imagine we're going to see some membership losses next year, especially the smaller companies, or even those large companies that have significant cash flow issues. So we may see a certain consolidation and loss of business in the industry, and therefore loss of members. And then I'm hoping our trade show for next year will go as scheduled, which is next April. Actually, a lot of our members have already talked about how excited they are to come back and see everyone. It'll be like the reunion time for everyone. And our equipment suppliers are already trying to sign up for next year. But the truth is, until there's a vaccine, it's not clear what's going to happen. How do you social distance at these large 5,000, 6,000 people conventions? And so that's still also up in the air, what's going to happen there.
Yeah. So 2021 for your organization, like others, that's your first level of concern. You're okay for 2020.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what we're hearing from a lot of groups.
Yes, absolutely.
So obviously one of the major things that you and your staff do are advocate for your members. And I can't imagine that's any more important than a time like this. How have you sort of continued to do that, given that you can't get to the Hill, and other sort of limitations given the current pandemic?
The good news is we have an existing Congress and existing folks in the administration that we have relationships with. So those relationships continue. They know us. We've a number of us on staff have been with the association representing recycling for a long time. So we have those existing stable relationships on the Hill, at EPA, at OSHA, at Department of Transportation, et cetera. And so we're talking to each other on Zoom calls, et cetera, and keeping up. That has not been affected. I think that what we're all still trying to figure out is how do we maintain and do advocacy next year, or in the fall and early next year when there's a new Congress coming in, perhaps a new administration, we have to make new introductions, et cetera. And if we're still social distancing, how do you do that? And that's still a conversation in progress.
It's a really good point. And you talk about sort of the amount of experience you and your team have working together. That was really evident to Jonathan and me when we went to your board meeting a few years ago. One of the things that was really clear was your members, many of them are family businesses with multi-generational owners. And they've been part of your life, and they've been part of yours for 20 years. And so as their policy advocate in Washington, knowing what these companies are going through and knowing these individuals as families, does that motivate you to even push and fight harder for them?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I've been in this position for about 21 years, but I've been with ISRI for 30. I was 12 when I started.
Child genius.
Yeah, oh yeah. And one of the reasons why I stayed with ISRI this long, believe me, when I first started, I didn't think this would be my career, but I fell in love with the industry, fell in love with the people. It really gets in your blood, and they are family. And so I am up on the Hill and at APA talking about my family, my industry, and that's true for many of us on staff. So that certainly does make it easier. I mean, I believe in what our members are doing. I respect what they're doing, and we're fighting for them.
So transferring to your staff, it's such a warm culture there. And, you know, every time we see Olga, we give her a hug, and it's just like, it's such a great group of people. how have you been able to sort of transfer to the best we can from the office to this new Zoom world?
It's a great question. And first of all, I am so lucky. We've got a great team on staff. And I'm really grateful for the work that they do and what they bring to the effort every day. And also we do a lot of hugging in the office, so I'm going to miss that. I already missed that. That's been hard. So we're all going to look forward to the day that we can do that again. But certainly one of the things that was most important was communication, and just to continue to make sure that the staff knew that we're all going through the same thing. I get burned out, they get burned out. You know, we're all trying to try to balance family issues while we're home, as well as work issues, and deal with all the different problems of our elderly parents, etc. And so I'm open about that, and they're open, and they know that I'm accessible at all times. And that's really important, to have that transparency and openness on communications. And we've actually, one of the practical things we did, which there was some resistance to at first, but it turned out to be a lifeline for everyone, which is, we used to have all staff meetings once a month. We now have an all staff meeting mandatory every Monday, but then we have check-in calls every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we got rid of them for Fridays. I think we're all zoomed out by Fridays. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9:30, and they're billed as check-ins. There's sometimes we just talk about what we're binge watching on TV. But what has surprised me is that virtually everyone on staff still comes to those. They're voluntary, but it's just an opportunity for some FaceTime, literally, and to chit chat and stay in contact. And one of the revelations for me, and this really surprised me, was that in many ways, I'm finding our staff communications better now than when we were face to face. There is something that is leveling when you're all on a Zoom call, and there's 25 squares or however many squares there are on the screen. And it isn't someone in the front of a large conference room or a large conference table talking to them. And I find people talking up that don't usually talk up. And it's really allowed for a much more productive and much more effective conversation on a regular basis.
That's interesting. There's almost like an equality that comes to it, because there is no head of the table.
Right, exactly. It's kind of nice.
So that's really interesting. And I'm also wondering about, we've all gotten proficient working from home, working remotely.
Yes.
There is a benefit of the office, that culture, that collaboration, and the innovation that you get as a result of being together. But is your staff going to look to more remote working as a result of this once you get back to the office?
Yes, and that's true for me too. I mean, it's interesting because before all of this happened, I was pretty resistant, to be honest, maybe old fashioned you call it, to a lot of folks doing remote work. We certainly have a number that do it, but like when I was hiring, when we would hire for positions, I wanted someone based in Washington. I was very reluctant to hire outside of Washington and for them to just come in once a month or whatever. And what I've learned through this is that you can work remotely and develop those relationships and get done what needs to get done. However, there's still a function for the office. And that's still trying to be figured out for us, to be honest, in part. It's some of it's mundane. It's like, there are some documents I'd love to print that I'm not going to print on my small little printer here at home. There's mailings. There are big mailings, like when our membership mailing has to go out in the fall. There are certain things that have to be done. And the meetings, some of the meetings with other stakeholders certainly can be done on Zoom and have been very effective. And I have found I can save on some travel costs going forward. But there are certain things that still need to be done in person. And so figuring out that balance is something we're all going to have to figure out, but I'm going to be more open to more of a balance. And one thing I want to thank both of you for is that one of the things that we love about our space is what you helped us achieve, which is that education center. Finding a space that would allow us to show off the industry, which we had never had in a space before, was so valuable to us. And that, I missed that actually, because one of the reasons why the meetings are valuable to us in our office is so that we can have other stakeholders come in and learn about the industry at the same time they're with us. So figuring out how we still leverage that is going to be part of the equation as well.
So talking about your space, you, Eric, Gannon, our other partner, and a number of your staff, we had a sort of a really nice reconnect call earlier this week and last week talking about reentry. And I know as of today, we're still in mid-May, the mayor has pushed back reopening at earliest to June 8th. So, you know, certainly we have at least 3 weeks or so left. But what are you all thinking about reentry?
It's interesting because part of the challenge and part of what's causing stress on all of us, myself included, is the uncertainty as to timing of when things occur. So one of the things we actually just decided this morning is we are not going to formally start the reopening process with people coming into the office until after Labor Day. Because I want people to have the summer. I mean, I know myself, you know, between figuring out what's going to happen with my kids' camp and a number of other issues that we're all trying to juggle, it would be helpful to know, to plan. And the problem is, even if we say June 8th now, it could change again. So I wanted to give us all room so that we could start planning with a little bit of certainty. So, and then what we're going to do, what we're looking at doing right now, and we're still developing the plan, is probably rotating people in, starting when we open, ideally after Labor Day. So it may be that 1 week, one group comes in, the next week another group, or it may be day to day, but we're probably going to divide the staff into quarters and do it that way. We're also making adjustments with some of our space because we're combined, as you know, open space and closed. And so the open space, we're putting up some barriers and doing some other things with moving people around so that there's adequate distancing.
That's great. All right. Well, Robin, thank you so much. It's been great speaking with you. So we really, really appreciate your time. And so thank you. If you need any real estate help, please feel free to reach out to Eric and me. You can see us on our website. And on our next edition of the WLS Minute, Jay Younger of McKinley Advisors will be joining us talking about the changing landscape of trade associations.